Oh, yes, guy. Hour number 2 of OverDrive and Mail It In Friday. Jim Tatti Dave Feschuk with you. OverDrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. The Jays off to Seattle this weekend, so Kikuchi tonight, Gosman, and then Manoah. So another look at Manoah. That's twice in a week.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe there's something that's going to click, Jim. They gotta keep hoping that it'll just be a little minor tweak that suddenly sets him back to 2022 when he was actually good.
Yeah, and that's the whole process here. It's you'd like to sort of have the one performance that tells you everything, but it'll probably be on a weekly basis. This is a story in progress.
They have to hope there's progress and not regress, because if it goes the other way, it can get ugly.
Keegan Matheson will be by in mere moments. The MLB.com Blue Jays reporter at Keegan Matheson is the Twitter account. Yes Guy, No Guy may appear later on in this hour, and Bob Weeks likewise. Later on, Dave Sims, Mariners TV voice, will be by at 6. Rod Smith from Tim Hortons Field at 6:25 as the Argos and the Ticats square off at Tim Hortons Field. That's great that he's joining us from the booth.
Love it.
Yeah.
Should be great. That's a great place to watch a football game, and should be a lot of fun down there tonight.
Yeah, packed house, Argos, Cats. What else do you need?
That's exactly it.
Yeah, and Cats going with the young quarterback Powell.
Okay.
Chad Kelly's been a nice story.
Chad Kelly's been great, but the quarterbacking crisis in the CFL continues. You worry about it. Hopefully this kid can play.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many opportunities. I mean, it's a crisis or opportunity would be the way to sum that up. And Saskatchewan's got that problem. Ottawa does. Am I missing somebody? Hamilton does.
Yeah, I think it's at least it's 4 of the 9 starters from last year. Is it 4 or 9? Yeah, 4 of the 9 from last year, or either injured or not playing in the league. Right?
And Ottawa went through 2.
Yeah,
and the Cats have gone through 2.
Yeah, there's a lot of third stringers playing right now.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me today, said, could the Cats win? I said, well, the Argos would have to participate in their demise.
Well, we'll
see.
It's been pretty rosy for the Argos so far. You got to think there's going to be some adversity between now and the end of the season.
Let's talk about the Blue Jays in Seattle. Keegan Matheson is here. Keegan, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, guys. How's everything there?
Everything's good. I'm just going to ask you sort of an off-the-wall question, because Baltimore is now leading the AL East. Is there any universe where the standings finish exactly as they are today, with the Jays getting the edge over the Astros?
There is. I think there is a very much a universe where the Orioles win this division, too. I feel like they're promoting a can't-miss prospect once a month, once a week in the middle of the season there. So I think there is. I think these standings right now are pretty true. We're close to 100 games in, and it looks strange to see the Orioles in first, because I remember living through those 50-win Orioles teams that were just painful to watch, even when you were beating them. But it's a new world.
So Keegan, obviously, going to Seattle, it's always a fun moment for West Coast Blue Jay fans. The big caravan of Canadian cars that heads down to the park from the Vancouver area will be on hand, I'm sure. The Seattle Mariners have taken action and removed the outrage of the Blue Jays merchandise from their team store. What does it mean for the Blue Jays? Do you get the sense that it actually revs this team up to head to Seattle as a bit of a quasi-home park?
A little bit. The answer is that you hope you don't need to be revved up this time of year, but I think it does matter, especially to a guy like, I'm thinking Kevin Kiermaier, for example. His first year with the Blue Jays, what he has experienced and how open he's been about that wow factor of playing for a country. When you get that in Toronto is one thing. When you get that in the United States, even though you're just over the border, is another. You saw a bit of that in Detroit as well. I wish there were more Blue Jays games in Detroit and vice versa. I think that could be a great rivalry again. But for the players who have not experienced it as much, this is a pretty cool trip, because the fans who come down here for Seattle as well, even if they fill half the stadium, these are not quiet fans. These are not fans who have come down to have a Diet Coke and quietly watch a baseball game. They are here to enjoy their weekend, and I love that.
Well, this whole story about, Toronto West is the new name for Seattle, based on the fan participation. It's always been a big hit that way. But in terms of taking things out of the Seattle Mariners store, seems a little far-fetched. I mean, what kind of buzz is there? You're in Seattle. Is there any kind of hint that there's a Blue Jay invasion here or there?
Yeah, the taking things out of the store was interesting. And even the reaction, people being upset to there being Blue Jays items in the store. I like to take that thinking one step further. Somebody's making money off of it. There's a reason. It's not the Mariners franchise turning on their players. There's a reason. There's always somebody making money. But, yeah, just being around, staying down on the waterfront today, walking down past the market, my own hotel, I am seeing more Blue Jays fans than I would ever see in a road series. You can notice it because, of course, everyone who's in town wants to go down to the market. They want to see the fish being thrown. They want to do the touristy activities. So everybody's out, and these games like this, it looks like it's going to be 22 to 26 all weekend. No rain, nothing here in Seattle, which is sometimes a problem. This looks like a perfect weekend for it. And it's also, guys, back-to-back Taylor Swift concerts at the football field on Saturday and Sunday. So this is just a weird mishmash of people here in Seattle.
Is it going to rain?
Incredible.
Is it going to rain?
Not going to rain. Doesn't look like it. So it's going to be interesting.
That's the full Taylor Swift experience.
That's right. Well, tell us. We know the Taylor Swift experience has swept the planet this year. Keegan, what's the Genesis Cabrera experience going to be like for Blue Jays fans?
Well, you can probably wait a week or two to decide on buying the jersey. We will see.
Okay.
This is a lefty who was DFA'd by the Cardinals, who are sellers. So there is a reason he's being moved, but of course there's a little bit of intrigue. There's a bit of upside, and I like moves like this because if you make 10 or 12 of them, eventually you hit on a guy. And you might as well roll the dice on a guy like Cabrera who has a level of upside. He's not a boring pitcher trying to get ground balls. He is a lefty who can throw 96, 97. He can strike guys out. The problem for him has been wild control, giving up home runs when he is in the zone. But you've seen him be effective in the past. And important to the Blue Jays is that he has an option year remaining. So we'll see if he is at the stadium today or if he's joining the team. But if the Blue Jays want, he can go down to AAA Buffalo and be that kind of next lefty in line behind Tim Meza. Meza has been incredible this season, but he's been the only lefty in that bullpen. So if you want another one, good to have the option there. And like I said, this is a dice roll on some upside. They rarely work, but when they do, it's pretty exciting, and you might as well roll that dice on a guy that has some real talent.
Let's go to what happens tomorrow and Sunday. Gausman goes tomorrow, and I guess the first order of business is the issue with his side, any lingering concerns, and what have they been saying about it?
Yeah, this just sounded like an issue of soreness and pain, which is not good news, certainly if you're Gausman, but it didn't sound like there was anything structural or anything worrying that would be made worse by pitching. It's just a matter of pitching without pain so he can rotate fully through his delivery. Sounds like he is okay right now. Nobody is healthy and happy and comfortable at this point of the season, but he's good to go, and the Blue Jays need him. He is the ace of this staff. I think for my dollar, he is one of the best starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. Once again this year, the ERA doesn't quite show it with that elite numbers, but he has been fantastic for this team. And my God, if they can score him some runs, that would be a start. He has some of the worst run support in Major League Baseball this season, but it's great to have him back for this rotation because they need that real steady hand at the top.
So we're about a week and a few days, Keegan, until the Major League Baseball trade deadline. If you're sort of ranking the hierarchy of Blue Jay needs between now and then, we've talked, on this show before you came on about the potential need for starting rotation help if you can't count on Manoah and you can't count on Ryu. The potential for another arm in the bullpen because maybe Genesis Cabrera is going to be a help, but you can't have enough arms in the bullpen. And of course, there's always the talk about the righty bat that they lack. I mean, of those three, how do you rank them, and how would you proceed?
I think the closest to a quote-unquote need would be that bat at this point. Now, whether that's a complimentary piece, you find a veteran, a 35-year-old veteran who's been there and done it to stick on your bench, maybe that's a start. The Blue Jays have essentially played with 25 players this year. They have barely used that Nathan Lucas, Jordan Luplow last spot on the bench at all. It's been pretty unique. So if there's a way to round out this lineup, even just shake it up, the talent is there. It just needs to perform. Any way you can shake it up or improve this lineup is good. I think the starting rotation is right there as a number two because, like you mentioned with Ryu and Manoah, yeah, there might be a world where you have 6 healthy starters, but baseball is a pessimistic sport. What if Kevin Gausman is still dealing with this side issue? What if Hyun-Jin Ryu coming back at his age with 89-mile-an-hour velocity off of Tommy John is not the answer. And what if Alek Manoah continues to struggle? You need more options, and the Blue Jays have been very fortunate. Full credit to those healthy starters for staying healthy and pitching those innings, but this usually doesn't last forever. The bullpen need will always be there. I think that will stay there for the Blue Jays, but really finding some way to shake up this lineup, to make this talent work to a level that it should be, I think has to be the priority here, because this is, frankly, guys, this is the type of lineup. When you look at this talent, if you don't do something in the playoffs, this is the lineup you look back on 10 years from now and say, what happened?
Yeah.
Look at those names. What happened? So that needs to happen.
The righty bat, Nelson Cruz is a name that's come up, 43-year-old Dominican, familiar with Vladdy Jr., obviously. Do you see it there?
You can certainly see something like that, because one of the words that Ross Atkins used was an accomplished hitter, meaning a guy who's a bit older. And sure, there aren't many 22-year-old hitters on the market. If you're being traded at this time of year, you're typically 30-plus, and you've been around, you've done that. Nelson Cruz is one that makes sense, one that's not exactly going to cost you your top prospects. You can go out and grab him. Something in that range, a guy who does not need to play every day, but if he can come in, hit lefties, provide a little bit of power, just something else for this lineup. And the Blue Jays are in a good position, relatively speaking, where position I don't think matters here whatsoever. It doesn't matter if you're a great center fielder or a second baseman. Who cares? The Blue Jays have enough flexibility that they can just target the best hitter that they want and figure out where they play defensively, if at all, later on.
I mean, really, this is a move that they would be considering to sort of support Vlad, right? I mean, if you have another bat around him in the batting order, all of a sudden he gets a little better pitch to look at.
It can be, yeah. There's been a little bit of movement with that kind of 3 and 4 spot. Where Brandon Belt is around Vladdy has changed through the year. But, guys, no matter what the Blue Jays do, I don't care if they trade for the top name on the market outside of Ohtani. No matter what they do, nothing matters as much as Vladdy getting hot down the stretch here. That 780, 790 range OPS, that's not him. That's not it. He has the ability, and we've seen it flick on for a minute, then flick back off this season. That ability to just change games and decide to win. You don't see that in baseball much. Vladdy has that ability in there. Nothing they do matters as much as Vladdy turning this around. He needs to do that alongside any moves that are made.
And so, coming off the Homer Derby win, everybody thought that was a springboard, but I guess it's not.
Hasn't been so far. And guys, there have honestly been a few times over this last month where I have completely thought that Vladdy was back. And that's coming from someone who usually takes a little while to believe these things. Really looked like he was back. The swing, but also the personality, playing with some joy, playing with some looseness, which is important to Vladdy. And then the next day comes, and it's not there. It's a matter of it sticking around, and you're seeing what the adjustment game can do to a young hitter. Because every pitcher, if I'm facing the Blue Jays tomorrow, I am spending extra time on Vladdy because I don't want to look stupid on the other end of a highlight video of Vladdy launching one 500 feet. He is getting every pitcher's best adjustments, and I think that's why you're seeing these things not stick around when they do happen, because they flashed, they just don't stick.
And how much of that can we blame on the guys around him, Keegan? Like the idea that, hey, why would we give Vladdy anything good to hit if nobody else can hurt us?
That is a factor. When you have the real protection in behind of Vladdy, look back to that 2021 season when Vladdy was playing out of his mind. You had, not even just speaking about directly behind him, but you had Marcus Semien in that lineup. You had a lineup leading MLB in OPS,
right? Not
just by a little bit, but comfortably. That is, speaking of teams we're going to look back on and wonder how didn't that happen. 2021, my goodness. That was an all-timer lineup for the Blue Jays. And when you are consistently hammering away at starting pitchers, your star can be your star. And that gets to the broader mental thing here with Vladdy. There have been times where he has tried to be that hero, where he is trying to be, listen, I'm Vladimir Guerrero Jr., this is my team, I'm going to go up to the plate and win this game. The moment you try that, you're out. The moment that you are not natural and the moment Vladdy's not just being casual Vladdy, it gets a lot tougher. And that's happening when you are seeing so many of these 1-1, 2-1 low-scoring games.
Okay, let's go to Sunday's game. Manoah's starting. You know, it'd be easy to sort of pick apart his performance based on the numbers, but in terms of what you know about how they're trying to get him back, what can you add to that in terms of their process?
The main factor that they are trying to get at here is Manoah's pace. And that does not mean between pitches with the pitch clock. It means how quickly he is going through his delivery. He was getting a little bit slower earlier in the season. And Manoah is a big, tall, long-limbed guy. So this is not a quick, twitchy delivery. There's a lot of moving parts. And those moving parts were moving too slow. They are trying to get him down the mound, releasing that ball just a fraction of a second quicker. That's when he's at his best. That's when he can attack the zone a little bit more. Now, in his last outing, yeah, there was some bad luck. The strike zone was not agreed upon by all sides, but it looked like a lot of Manoah starts prior to that, and he was not getting strike three. He was not getting swings and misses. So, like I've said since he went down the first time, this has to work. You know, just being back is step one. It has to work, and last time out against the Padres did not. The Mariners know Alek Manoah very well. They will have a good game plan for him, I expect, and this is a major test, especially with the deadline right there, guys. The Blue Jays need to know who Alek Manoah is these last 2 months, and I don't know the answer to that right now. Internally, the Blue Jays need to know that answer.
You know, you talked about that last start that Manoah had, Keegan, and the kerfuffle around the strike zone and the disagreements that it brought. Was that a good advertisement for why baseball is eventually, and probably needs to as fast as possible, get to some form of the robo-umpire?
It would help my Twitter mentions a lot. So selfishly, if I see another picture of a strike zone, I might finally crack and lose it. It's,
okay.
Sometimes it even happens to the other team, believe it or not.
Yes.
But yes, I think it does. And guys, the number one problem, I think, with the robot umpire is that people really think there's a robot there, that there's no umpire behind the plate. It's going to be eventually an umpire with an earpiece in. You'll still have the visual. There will still be a human being putting out the strike call or calling it a ball. It'll still look the same. And I think when we get there, just like the pitch clock, which for my dollar has been one of the best things that's happened to baseball in decades.
No doubt.
It's going to be something people will be upset about for a week and then probably forget about.
Yeah, are you big on the every pitch is called by the system, or do you like the challenge system that they're trying in AAA right now?
I do like that challenge system. I've seen it just a bit as they're rolling that out. It adds a little bit of that controversy, a little bit of that flair, because if there was not such a kerfuffle made about balls and strike calls, I do like that human element. But the arguments it leads to, the but that it leads to, is a bit of a headache. So if there's a way to keep that in and satisfy both sides, great. But if it has to go full robot strike zone, automated strike zone, I think people will very quickly adapt to it and will remove any of this. You know, the pitching line was bad, but the strike zone, it'll get rid of that.
Keegan, I'd like your thoughts on how this tracks forward. We talked a bit about Manoah there, and Ryu is on his way back. Do you look at these guys as sort of a daily double, like they actually become one guy, and maybe the Jays don't need a starting pitcher, or do they absolutely need to acquire a starting pitcher?
I think that starting depth, you need to acquire a starting pitcher. It's just a matter of who does that pitcher need to be. Is that going to be like when they acquired Ross Stripling a few years ago, kind of a swing man who, worst case scenario, can start some games or give you multiple innings? Or is this going to be a guy that has to go into the rotation and start games in a playoff race? How high are you shopping on this list? Right now, if you get one of Alek Manoah and Hyun-Jin Ryu, if one of them clicks, if one of them can give you a 4.0 ERA and 5 or 6 innings each time out, good enough. You're happy. You can go and get a depth guy. But it is, I think, betting against what if one of them goes wrong and something else goes wrong. The Blue Jays all season have had 0 starting rotation depth. They were the last team in MLB to need an extra starter. And when that happened, they immediately went to a bullpen game. That's where their depth has been. So if anything goes wrong, there's still not much there. That's why I think regardless, there's got to be an add to that rotation. Just a matter of if it's a legitimate guy or something that you cover yourself with.
The Ohtani situation, Keegan, it's going to be the topic du jour until August 1st. And I guess there's theories out there, right, in terms of what the Angels will do. Today, he's going to pitch tonight, I guess, and they're 5 games out of the wild card. And I think that has, apparently their position in the playoff race will have a lot to do with whether or not they move on from Ohtani before the deadline or whether they ride this season out. What's your best guess on it?
I don't think they will, but I wish they would. Nothing keeps a franchise stagnant in baseball like thinking you are something you're not. And the third wild card spot every year convinces a few teams they're something that they're not. They are not a contender, but once you get that 5-6 games out, it's so easy to believe.
Yeah.
It's so easy to believe that you might make that run. And when you have Ohtani, I understand that A, you want to try to make the run, and B, you do not want to live your life being known as the guy who traded Shohei Ohtani. I get that personal side of it, but I think Major League Baseball, any way that it can be like the NBA with big star names moving around, I think that makes such an entertaining sport. I'd love to see it. His free agency is going to be ridiculous, but I want a taster of that. I want to see how that goes early on, and any team acquiring him is getting an ace pitcher and a star hitter. You're getting 2 players at one time. And the Angels, if they ever pulled the trigger on that package, would be getting, I think, automatically the best or one of the best trade deadline packages for a quote-unquote rental of all time.
Keegan, thanks very much. Enjoy Seattle.
You got it, guys. Take care.
Keegan Matheson joins us on the Maple Toyota hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota. And Guy, check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. Guy, it's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. I like what he said there. And so, just to show how you could live forever, if you trade Ohtani, I mean, we still refer to the fact that Babe Ruth broke in with the Red Sox, and I think we've forgotten the guy's name who traded him, but there still is that reference in the file over 100 years later.
The curse of the Bambino was a real thing for very many years in Boston, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And for sure. But I mean, on the other hand, you could say, I'm the guy who didn't let Shohei Ohtani walk for nothing. You know what I mean? Like,
but
you can spin that around.
But you're also the guy who couldn't win with Ohtani and Trout.
Well, but Trout got hurt, Jim.
I know. But
what was I supposed to do?
You live in infamy one way or the other.
And we didn't have any pitching other than Ohtani. Oops.
Yeah. And quite frankly, it's a sort of an additional yes guy, no guy. Whoever acquires Ohtani does. Let me rephrase that. Yes guy, no guy. Ohtani brings a World Series win with him.
Yes guy.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it. And you got to think, if you're going to, it's like Keegan said, if you're going to give away the best package ever given away for a rental, you better have a World Series team.
That's right. You better win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you wouldn't want them for 3 months.
Yeah, you're not doing it if you're kind of immediate. I've heard people say, oh, maybe Seattle will get him. It's like, well, why would you spend all the capital if you're not even that good? You're not an automatic World Series favorite with him on your roster.
Yeah. Too bad it couldn't be a sign and trade.
Yeah.
Although, who knows? Maybe somebody does explore that.
I'm sure there's a few conversations going on about where he might want to sign next year.
The burner business is.
You think there might be a few whispers
burner phones are just going off the shelf.
Think he'd sign with us? I think his agent might be fielding a few calls. Maybe with burners, maybe secretly, maybe on a WhatsApp encrypted chat. Who knows?
That's store by Yankee Stadium that sells burners should be monitored.
Well, the Yankees are. I mean, would you even want to go to the Yankees because they're not necessarily a World Series contender? Even
I just think that there's that part of the deal that brings in extra money that in a market like New York, Chicago, or L.A. reaches a level of endorsement that you couldn't get in other markets.
Yeah,
and it's an international deal, actually.
And the Yankees have had, they had Matsui, who was a great Japanese player. They've got a track record of being able to deliver on that. And they're the Yankees. Let's face it; they're going to be a factor here.
Absolutely, they have their own economy, as we are well aware.
Yep.
Coming up next, Bob Weeks talking about the Open. This is OverDrive on TSN 1050, streaming online, also available in the iHeartRadio app.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
Oh, yes, guy, mailed it in Friday, just chugging along. Jim Tatti and Dave Feschuk with you. Going to talk about the Open. Brian Harman has the lead, 6 under today, 10 under for the tournament. Going to bring in our good friend Bob Weeks, TSN golf analyst, co-host of Golf Talk Canada, in the Hall of Fame for golf and curling coverage. A 2 Hall of Famer. Weeksy, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys this morning? Or this afternoon?
Oh, Guy. You're all messed up with the time. It's Friday afternoon.
I get up early.
Well, you have to report on this stuff. So Brian Harman with the 6-under. There's a couple of 4-unders. Jason Day had one of them, but he was in his own area code, wasn't he?
He really was. And, the secret to his success so far has been that he's stayed out of the bunkers. He's been in one bunker through 36 holes, and that putter has been super hot. I think 260 feet of putts he's sunken through 2 rounds, dropped in. So he's really on fire right now. It's not a big surprise. He's kind of a low ball hitter. He's got sort of I wouldn't say it's a hook, but a draw, and he plays that pretty well. And he has, as I say, he's just kept the ball in the fairway, kept the ball in the greens, and he's a good enough putter where he's going away. But a 5-shot lead is pretty remarkable after 36 holes.
I mean, you're right, Bob. The assumption is a guy who's never won a major before. He's finished second at a U.S. Open. He's been in the hunt a few times, but he's never got it across the line at a major event. There's the assumption that he's going to fall back, and that the real lead something around 5 under, where Tommy Fleetwood sits 5 shots back of Harman. What do you think of that theory, or do you believe that a guy like Harman has the game plan and the game to continue to do what he's doing?
Well, he's talking a good game so far. He said that the last time, which was 2017, when he was had the 54-hole lead at the U.S. Open, he said he just kind of got it ahead of himself. He started thinking about the what ifs and what would life be like as a winner. And this is a kid who grew up really as an outstanding junior, as an outstanding amateur. And I think there were a lot of expectations on him. So he kind of got ahead of himself with all that adulation, and that happened at that U.S. Open, which was pretty early in his career. I think now he's got a little more perspective. He's one of those guys who's always kind of in the hunt but never winning. He's only won twice, and
Right.
He's had, I think, 50 top 10s in his career. So I think he's a little wiser. We'll see if he can hang on, but I don't think he'll be leading by 5. He might be leading tomorrow, but I don't think he'll be leading by 5. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, fair point. So when you look at the best of the rest, Bob, when you go down the leaderboard, Tommy Fleetwood alone in second place at -5. Then there's Sepp Straka, who shot a 4-under round today to get to -4. Min Woo Lee at -3. Jason Day at -3. Some intriguing names. Jordan Spieth at -2. Who stands out there who might be able to make a run in your mind?
Well, Fleetwood is the guy I think that everyone's looking at. I mean, he's the closest to him, obviously, so that makes it a little easier. But he's played so well of late. His last 3 starts, he's was that runner-up in that playoff to Nick Taylor, obviously at the Open Championship. He was tied for 6th, and then tied for 5th in the 2 previous starts, including at the Scottish Open last week. And he lives up the road. It's a good story. It's a feel-good story. He grew up 20 miles from this golf course, and so I think he's playing good enough right now that he can win this. But I think you can go back as far as one under, and then in that group, you've got Rory McIlroy is the name that stands out to me.
Right.
I think that he could very easily, with a couple of putts going down, I think he could shoot a 65 or a 66 on Saturday when the weather is going to be a little bit more, shall we say, what the Open looks like normally. A little bit of rain, a little bit of cold, a little more wind. So the elements may play a factor as well. And I think Rory plays well when the going gets tough. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him make a big move tomorrow.
As you were giving that answer, Bob, I was thinking back, and I don't know the exact year. Sometime in the last 10 years, I don't think it was on this course. Ernie Els he walked into an Open Championship because he just had that veteran savvy, didn't implode, and I can't remember who he took it from, but he was just calmly going about his business, and maybe that's Rory this weekend.
Yeah, I think the one thing about Rory is in the last little while, he's really sort of just decided, I'm going to just focus on my golf. He hasn't gotten himself into this battle with Liv and the PIF stuff. He has not been in a press conference in a press room pre-tournament since the Canadian Open. And he's just really sort of saying, I'm going to focus on golf. I'm going to be relaxed. I'm going to be calm. And he does seem that way. Even after the round today, he was sort of talking about how he feels like he's actually playing pretty good golf. He's just got to sink a few more putts. And he's not far off. Now, everyone can say that. I mean, everyone could sink a few more putts. But I really feel that his game is strong enough right now and has shown it over the last few weeks and last few starts that he could make a big move. And I agree with you, Jim. I think the calmness that I've seen from him, there's no sort of, oh, woe is me, or I'm missing putts, or why can't these putts go down? He's just sort of moving from hole to hole, and he looks pretty good.
Any theories on Justin Thomas's struggles, Bob? He's missed the cut at all the majors this year, I believe. He's just not himself. What was he, 11 over for the tournament as he heads home from Royal Liverpool? It doesn't seem like the player we've grown accustomed to watching, and I'm not sure if there's any answers out there.
Yeah, I think if there were answers, he'd probably be putting him into play. But it is very unusual. I mean, he's gonna play next week at the 3M Open in Minnesota, and the reason he's going to play is because he's on the outside of the FedEx Cup playoffs right now. He's not even in that right now. I think he's projected to be, after this week, about 75, and only the top 70 are going to go in. He's played it every year. He's been eligible. He's won it before. And then you start thinking about Ryder Cup. Is he going to be a captain's pick in the Ryder Cup? Do you take a risk on a guy who's playing like that? And there's no real sort of say, oh yeah, well, it's just his driver, or it's just his irons, or it's just his putter. It's all of the above. He really at certain times has got parts of it working, but he can't seem to put everything together. And it's he is one of those guys who, when the wheels come off, they come off flying, and they just, grinds to a halt. So I don't know if he's stopped looking for the answer and just trying to sort of reset, or if he's working with his coaches right now. There seems to be a lot of talk going on behind the scenes. He was talking today about how, trying to lobby Zach Johnson to get a Ryder Cup spot, because he does feel that he is still a good team player and a good team person that would contribute. But boy, if I'm Zach Johnson, I don't know. It's a big risk, and for Justin Thomas, he's got to find an answer, and I'm not sure he knows where the answer is.
Well, I have completed the trivia question. It was Ernie Els' 2012 over Adam Scott at Royal Lytham in St. Anne's, and Scott just imploded, and Ernie was there to mop up. But so now that we're on obscure stuff, I mean, Hovland got birded yesterday, and it wasn't it wasn't on the hair, it was on the on a sleeve. And that's pretty weird. What's the weirdest thing that Bob Weeks has seen on a golf course?
The weirdest thing I've seen on the golf course, well, my immediate reaction is at this championship, pretty much every year when I've covered it, there's always been a naked streaker. I guess streakers are all naked, but running around on the 18th green. So usually you see them. And I remember one guy, I don't know if I should say this, but there was one guy, usually it was a woman, thank God, but there was one guy running around, and he had an arrow on his back pointing down, and the words that said 19th hole on the top of it painted onto his back. So that was pretty strange on the golf course. I have seen some strange outfits, though. Like Victor Hovland was wearing something today that looked like he should be in a marching band or something. I remember Sergio Garcia at this golf course in 2006. He had a chance to win in the last round, and he was wearing like all yellow. He looked like a banana out there. I'm not sure who decided to dress him, but there's been some unusual dress codes over the years and some dress code violations for sure. But there's for a sport that sort of holds itself above high in all this tradition and everything. There's usually some strange things that go on week in and week out.
No doubt. Well, what do you make of the Canadian content here, Bob? Obviously, Nick Taylor does not make the cut, and the only other Canadian in the field, Corey Connors, is 2 over par through 36 holes. What do you make of Connors' chances to make some kind of run up the leaderboard on the weekend?
I'll give Nick a pass. This was his first go-around at the Open Championship. He hadn't played in it before, so I'm not sure if he knew what to expect. And he was playing alongside Phil Mickelson, so I think he got into a lot of crowds. There were some big crowds following those guys. No excuses on that. He's used to it. He beat him at Pebble Beach in those same crowds. But I'm not too worried about Nick Taylor's game at this point. Corey Connors has never been a really great links golf player from his background and playing. This is his 4th time in the Open, and that surprises me because he is such an accurate player off the tee and into the greens, which you need to be. You need to stay out of the bunkers, and you need to hit the right side of these greens. I always thought he would do a little bit better. I always thought he would do a little bit better at the U.S. Open, where he struggled as well. So I'm not sure if there's an answer there for what makes him tick. I hope he does well this weekend. I hope he plays a little bit and plays a little more carefree, but I'm not holding my breath at this point.
Bob, I'm going to play an old game show. Christo Lamprecht, ballooned by 13 shots. So 66 yesterday, 79 today. Who is the real Christo Lamprecht?
You know, he almost did something called the Rod Pampling, which was there was an Australian golfer named Rod Pampling maybe about 15 years ago who led after the first round and missed the cut. So at least Christo Lamprecht actually made the cut after leading on the first round, and he is 1.5 foot taller than the guy who was leading after, or 1 foot 1 inch taller than Brian Harman, who's leading after the second round. But Christo Lamprecht is he is a 6'8" South African amateur who won the British Amateur Championship last year to qualify for the Open. And I'll tell you, he is he's the real deal. He's an interesting character. I'm not sure. I think he plans to go professional after he finishes up at Georgia Tech, where he's going to school. And it will be interesting to see him week in and week out on the PGA Tour. There hasn't been really many great tall golfers over the years. I can think of maybe George Archer, who was 6'5". I think Dustin Johnson's maybe 6'4", 6'3". Phil's up there, Tiger's up there. But you look at Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus. I mean, they were all under 6 feet. So I don't know. He's an interesting guy to watch. He's got a bit of a funky swing, but I'd love to see him week in and week out for a while on the PGA Tour.
What's your review of this course, Bob? We've seen a lot of raves about how beautiful it is because it's obviously stunning to the eye, but there's also some really bad things that can happen to you with, the one bad bounce can get you into one of these crazy bunkers where you just can't get out, or it's very difficult to. We've seen some awfully accomplished players, I think, including Matt Fitzpatrick, a guy who's won a major, just absolutely at the bunker's mercy. What do you make of that?
Well, they had to do a little emergency surgery overnight on Thursday. The bunkers, as you see them, they're sidewall bunkers, and the sand is basically flat. So guys were hitting shots in, and they were coming to rest right up against the wall of the bunker, as it were. I mean, Tony Finau yesterday had to hit a putt about 4 feet backwards in a bunker just so he could play a shot to get out with his next one.
Right.
So they moved a lot of the sand up towards the wall. So there was at least most of the balls that would go up there would now go up and come back and give these guys a little chance to get out of there. But I mean, that's not uncommon at most links golf courses and most open golf courses. You just have to stay out of the bunkers because they're at least a shot penalty, if not more in some cases. There's a lot. It seems to be a lot more in play at this golf course than I recall from other ones. The other part about this golf course that's weird is they have internal out of bounds. And by that, I mean, like most courses you play around here, if you go out of bounds, you're, on the railway tracks or you're in someone's backyard. It's the property line.
Right.
This is on the 18th hole. It goes all the way up the right-hand side, and it's really where the members' driving range is generally. It's a grandstand this week, but it's just so unusual to have out of bounds internal. I mean, Ricky Fowler put 2 over there on his first round on Thursday, and Adam Scott hit one over there, and Sam Burns hit one over there. There's a bunch over there. So it's got its quirk. The new 17th par 3 is only 126 yards, but it's already proving to be a pretty tough hole, as Matt Fitzpatrick found out. There's sort of a small landing area on the top, and then it drops off severely on the sides. And it could be a little bit of a calamity there come Sunday if somebody's got a 2-shot or a 1-shot lead and has to make a birdie or make a par or something on that hole. It would be pretty tough. But it's not my favorite open course, but I would say it's an interesting one. It could get more interesting as we go along on the weekend.
Weeksy, have a good weekend.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Okay, that's Bob Weeks, our golf insider, co-host of Golf Talk Canada. 2 Halls of Fame.
I think more than 2. I mean, he's in the Canadian golf, the Canadian curling, and then he's in the Ontario golf. He's in the Etobicoke Sports Hall of Fame. You go down to Leafs practice, you see Bob Weeks on the Etobicoke Sports Hall of Fame wall.
Right. Yeah.
So, and there may be more. I don't even have that. That's just off the top of my head. 4 Hall of Fames.
I cut him short. I apologize for that.
You should apologize.
Okay. Well, it's Mailed On Friday. That's probably why I wasn't too sharp. Mailed On Friday is brought to you by Boston Pizza. Weekends are better with fish bowls and frosty pints on the BP patio. Grab your sunscreen. Let's have a weekend. See you at the BP patio. This is OverDrive and TSN 1050, streaming online, also available in the iHeartRadio app. Mailed In Friday, Jim Tatti Dave Feschuk with you, and because we've got some extra time here, another bonus.
Yes guy, no guy.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, drivers and passengers, take 2 on the yes guy, no guy. All things have been signed, sealed, and delivered. It's all sanctioned. Go ahead, Mr. Grappler.
Okay, yes guy, no guy. Is it number 1? Do we start again, or is this number 4?
Number 1 guy.
Number 1, okay.
Wow.
Yes guy, no guy, part 2, number 1.
Thank you.
Okay, yes guy, no guy, number 1. Justin Thomas plays on the U.S. Ryder Cup team.
No guy.
You're no guy.
I'm a no guy. Struggling. We don't need it.
Yeah, I said to Bobby Weeks that he missed the cut at all the majors. He only missed the cut at 3 of the 4. So I mean, I was besmirching him. He made the cut at the PGA, but I'm a yes guy. Okay, and here's why.
One of us is right.
Yeah, he's 6-2-1 in the Ryder Cup, and even though yes, I understand he's 13th in the Ryder Cup standings to make the U.S. team, and only the top 6 get automatic bids. The other 6 are going to have to come from the captain's pick. Of course, Zach Johnson is this year's captain. But when you've got a track record like that in international competition, he's 10-3-2 at the President's Cup. So this guy has been a lockdown, solid U.S. team member. If he can just have a couple of decent events between now and the selection, I think he's on the team.
Yeah, I'm a no guy. I think I'm leaning with Jim. Like, I think I read today, like, he's currently on the outside of the FedEx Cup playoffs with, I believe, only 2 more events to go. And so, you know, if he only has those 2 events and isn't able to make his way into the playoffs, I mean, how much is he really going to get his, like, competitive game in shape ahead of the Ryder Cup? I don't know if Zach Johnson wants to go there.
That could be difficult. You're right. He's got to make the playoffs. No, I mean, like, if he doesn't make the playoffs in these next 2 events, you're right. I wouldn't be betting on him.
No,
be on
definitely.
the Ryder Cup team.
Okay, yes guy, no guy, number 2. Saquon Barkley has played his final game for the New York Giants.
I'm probably a yes guy on this. I'm not 100% sure on this because, you know, it's a dicey situation, but it seems to me like, yeah, the relationship has run its course. And of all the positions where it's hard to play hardball, running back is it, right? It's the most disposable position in professional sports, especially for guys who have, you know, whatever, a decent sized ticket, and Saquon Barkley certainly qualifies as that.
Got to go with a yes guy. As you say, running back, I mean, this is, I think it's easy for everybody to move on here. Rappler?
Yeah. No, and you know, worth noting that it's not official yet, but the Giants do appear to have signed James Robinson, formerly the Jaguars. So it already looks as though they're kind of planning to, at the very least, start the season without him. And then once you're starting the season without someone, I mean, at that point, do you even want them back? So anyway, should be an interesting, month and a bit before we get a final answer on that. Yes guy, no guy, number 3. The Leafs going into the season with so many expiring contracts is a good thing.
I'm going to say yes guy. All capital letters, hard yes guy. It puts the onus on the players. They've got something to play for, at least the cluster of expiring contracts do. And if it doesn't work, you move on.
I'm a big yes guy, too. I think if you're a new GM in town, you got this sort of last-minute job when Kyle Dubas bailed on the Maple Leafs or tried to, whatever, got fired, whatever you want to call it, the Dubas debacle. You come in as Brad Treliving, you don't have a ton of options this offseason to remake this team. You're trying, but there's not a lot of flexibility with the cap. There's not a lot of flexibility with various contracts. But the idea that you've got all these guys from Bertuzzi to Domi, and you're going to have Ilya Samsonov after the arbitration really comes down for 1 year unless you walk away in the unlikely event. Yeah, I like it because you can remodel the team considerably after next year if things do not go well in next spring's playoffs.
Okay, one more yes guy, no guy, quick one. The undefeated Argos remain without a loss until after Labor Day.
No guy. No guy. They will, I'm going to put the onus on them. Just because it's, you're talking about the season before Labor Day when it really doesn't count. They've had a great start. I take nothing away from them, but at some point they're going to lose their edge and inflict some pain on themselves. So no guy.
Yeah, I'm a no guy too. I mean, tonight in Hamilton, maybe
could be.
Yeah, okay.
But they're going to participate in their own demise whenever that happens.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's talking about, well, they're not going to lose tonight because it's a rookie quarterback. For the Ticats, but maybe it's not about who they're playing. It's about them falling off the rails a little bit, getting a little, it's only natural when you're unbeaten. Maybe some of the details fall by the wayside. Maybe people get a little too comfortable. Maybe you need to be snapped back to reality with a loss.
Yeah. Grappler, you're done? Okay. If you agree with us, good. So that ends the second edition of Yes Guy, No Guy on OverDrive today. Coming up next, Dave Sims, Seattle Mariners TV voice. This is OverDrive, available on TSN 1050, streaming online, also the iHeartRadio app.